Yeah, that's great. Good afternoon, colleagues. Welcome to our November Cabinet meeting. The first item on our agenda today are apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence today? Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest? We move then to item 3, which are the minutes of the last meeting. These are on pages 3 to 16 of the report packs that you have before you. All colleagues have had an opportunity to read through these minutes and consider them. Is there somebody who's happy to move these as a true record of our previous meeting?
Happy to move them, Leader.
Thank you both.
Happy to second.
Thanks, everybody. And any matters arising that are not on the agenda today? Okay, thanks very much. We'll move then to item number 4 on our agenda, which is the first substantive item of today's meeting. This is the external pressures and cost of living report, and this can be found in pages 17 to 22 of the packs that you have before you. Now, the purpose of this report, colleagues, is to provide Cabinet with an update on the Council's response to the external factors that are impacting upon our services, communities and businesses. As we are all very much aware, the last 3 years have been extremely challenging for Newport City Council and its partners, supporting our most vulnerable and disadvantaged residents through the pandemic and now the cost of living crisis. And also ensuring Newport's economy and businesses have the necessary support and resilience to withstand global and UK external pressures. Last week, colleagues, as you know, I announced the financial challenge that Newport City Council now faces as a result of the continuing inflationary pressures and the budget gap that we face of £33 million. Like households, businesses and other local authorities in Wales and across the UK, Newport City Council is seeing its own costs increase due to fuel and energy costs, increased demand for social care, and increasing costs in the delivery of services and goods bought by the Council. Since 2011, Newport City Council has already implemented over £90 million of savings, and the Council has significantly reduced the size of the organisation. There really are very few choices left to us. More than 3/4 of the Council's budget is funded by a grant from Welsh Government, with only a quarter coming from the money that we raise through council tax. Now, for our residents, we do understand that this is a very substantial bill, and this is despite Newport maintaining one of the lowest rates in Wales for many years. More than 2/3 of our budget is spent on schools, education and social care. We really are facing very difficult and challenging times. No leader or cabinet of a local authority wants to have to make these challenging choices, but the current circumstances mean that we will have to decide how we reduce the budget gap. Next month, this cabinet will receive a number of proposals for consideration before we go out to public consultation for residents to have their say on our budget proposals for next year. We've been working really hard across our organisation, and despite these challenging times, our officers are continuing to support our vulnerable and disadvantaged residents and support businesses as best that they can through the cost of living crisis. But it cannot be left to the Council alone. And Newport's other public sector organisations, charities, not-for-profit and voluntary groups, and religious groups will need to continue to work together to help provide whatever support that we can over the next 6 months. Earlier this month, I held a cost of living summit with strategic and community leaders from across Newport to understand how we can work together to find ways in which we can share resources, buildings and other opportunities to support households over this difficult winter period. As a result of this summit, we're working more closely with other organisations and community leaders to provide the necessary support. We've also held a cost of living event at the Riverfront Theatre, inviting council and partners to provide advice, guidance and support to our residents in Newport. And I think at this point in the meeting, I'd really like to say a huge thank you to the heads of service who organised that excellent event. I was absolutely delighted to see the number of agencies and organisations that were there. And also, thanks to Cabinet colleagues, certainly the Cabinet members with responsibilities in this area, for really, really championing this event. And of course, thanks to all of our members who actually attended the event as well. It was lovely to see across the entire level of government here in the UK that our MPs and our members of the Senedd also attended the event to provide support for our residents too. A really strong example of everybody in Newport pulling together to try to help our residents. Now, this event was just one of many in terms of other services and initiatives which we're leading on. What I would say to our residents who may be listening to this meeting today or watching this meeting back, if you are experiencing difficulties with the cost of living, please, please don't suffer in silence. Contact your ward councillor and they'll be able to put you in touch with people who can help you. Contact the council directly. We do have people here who can help. If you don't want to contact us, then please get in touch with Citizens Advice Bureau, who can help and provide appropriate support and signpost you to that help and support. Now, the report that we've got before us also covers the situation with regard to the Ukrainian refugee support and asylum dispersal. And colleagues, as you'll be aware, Newport City Council is fully supportive of the Welsh Government's Nation of Sanctuary, and we really pride ourselves on our support for people who've been displaced because of persecution, conflicts and natural disasters. Over the last 5 years, we've welcomed many families, such as those from Syria, Afghanistan and Iraq, through UK government initiatives, such as the Home Office Dispersal Scheme, to settle and create a new life here in Newport. Due to the increase in people seeking asylum, as a result of impacting global issues, the Home Office have announced a full dispersal approach, and this requires all local authorities to become asylum dispersal areas. More recently, we've welcomed Ukrainian families, with many residents offering their homes to help provide a secure setting for themselves and their children. And throughout these challenges, colleagues, officers from across the City Council continue to collaborate and work with other agencies to help people find suitable and secure accommodation in Newport and ensure that they have the support that they need. And I'd like to thank officers for the work that they've done on this report. I do continue to believe very firmly that it's really important that we discuss these issues within our formal meetings and we keep a focus on these within the public domain as well. So thank you to the officers who've compiled the papers. And at this point, colleagues, I'll pause and introduce comments. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Leader. I wanted to specifically focus in relation to the cost of living crisis. The report focuses on how, as local authority, we're reaching out and our partners are reaching out to support residents within Newport. What I specifically wanted to focus on is actually what's happening within our schools in this current time. It's absolutely clear to teachers when they see a child shaking with hunger that teaching and learning opportunities are not the foremost issue that's on a child's mind when they attend school on a Monday morning. And this is now not an untypical situation that's being described to me by staff and governors who work in our schools in Newport, in some of our most deprived areas. The hunger and need to eat is not about a lack of care or love or parental neglect. This is absolutely about our parents struggling to find money to put food on the table. And it's appalling that we are in a developed country and our children are now currently starving. Many are. Schools are responding to this crisis, really realising that they have a duty to reach out and support those families who are most in need. And I'm aware of many schools now who are using grant funding to employ family liaison officers, and they are providing the following in our schools. It's quite a regular occurrence for me to see food banks, uniform libraries, washing machines for children to have school uniform to be washed, benefit advice, housing advice, referrals to our health partners, family support and counselling that's been provided at a school level. Schools are becoming a wraparound service, something as a counsellor, first elected 10 years ago, I would never anticipate it happening, and it's now becoming a regular function from our schools. It's that reaching out, supporting families to ensure children actually get the opportunity to learn, to make a difference. It's appalling that we're in now this state of affairs, and I just wanted to comment on that's actually what's happening as a consequence of this cost of living crisis. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. And it really is a testament, isn't it, to the commitment of our education professionals in our school settings, that they work so hard in terms of supporting the well-being of their children as well. So thank you for that. Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Leader. I agree with comments already been made. I never, in the 10 years I've been elected, did I ever imagine that we would be using food banks and basically soup kitchens because of the mismanagement of funding from central government. I find it very difficult to swallow the fact that people are coming to us asking us for food and electric tokens and gas meter read. It's horrendous. It's 2022 and we're all here. I was with you at that event, Leader, with the cost of living crisis and the ideas that were being bounced around the room. But on the one hand, it was amazing how everybody wanted to work together. But on the other hand, it was incredibly sad that it's got to the point where we're all coming together just to try and fix things. It's horrific, but what can we do? I just would like to reiterate what you said. If you are in any need, in any way, shape or form, it's nothing to be ashamed of. You've done nothing wrong. Just get hold of one of your councillors, doesn't matter who it is, and we can help you and try and deal with it for you. Thanks, Leader.
Indeed, Councillor Harvey, and we're all very supportive of your comments here. I got a few Cabinet members that would like to come in. Councillor Forsey, did you indicate that you wanted to speak?
I didn't, but I would like to make a couple of small points at some stage. Okay. Well, the one thing I wanted to draw attention to was the number of advice sessions that our colleagues are offering for residents across the city. So residents can go along and drop in and get advice and make sure that they are getting all the money, that is due to them is a good starting point. And the other quite different point I wanted to make about the very moving Remembrance Sunday event that we had on the Sunday just gone. But what I was thinking of, the gun went off. Imagine if that was for real, and for millions of people, it's not firing a shot across the river for us to mark the time, for millions of people. They're real guns, missiles being fired at them, and I just can't imagine how awful that is to live with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fawsey, and a very sober note there, which really highlights to us all how important it is that we continue with the work that we're doing here in Newport. So thank you very much for that. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Leader. I'm glad that Newport is taking a coordinated approach to the cost of living crisis and focusing on the most vulnerable and disadvantaged. This morning, I was in Killeen helping set up an information hub there really for the cost of living crisis, and what's apparent is that we've got more and more people falling into genuine hardship now with increasing energy bills, with food issues, and it's genuinely hard for people. But what I would say the report highlights is that the help is there, and I think what I'm noticing is very often people come for that help quite late, and then they fall foul of the awful situations of things like loan sharks and stuff. And I think, if people can come forward, if people can approach the help that's available, lots of really great partnership work happening throughout the city. As I was talking about Killeen now, we've got food banks involved, we've got the church involved, we've got RBL involved, Mind. There's some brilliant stuff going on. But it's really important that people try and access those services early so they get the right support. And that's what I'd be asking people to do, really. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Clark.
Thank you. Just really sort of just adding on to what's been said. I'm hoping the residents of Newport will understand where we are as a council. When their bills are going up, so are our bills going up. Gas, electricity, and how difficult it is. And I would say it's a worry that in the same weeks or months when the UK have announced it's got the most billionaires they've ever had, it's also been announced we've opened the most food banks than we've ever had. Something is wrong there. Something is wrong. And I know, the cost of living crisis is down to, numerous issues, but it didn't help with the 45 disastrous days the last Prime Minister was in charge. But what I would say, and there are positives, and this is Newport for you, and this is Newport Council for you, with all this going on, and it was touched on, which I think was hugely important, about not leaving people behind or doing our best for people. With the Ukraine support, we've had 121 approved applicants, which 90 are active in placements across 46 sponsors. So even though what's going on at the moment, we really are not just saying we're going to help, we are really helping everyone. I just wanted to put that point across. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. And you really highlight some very important factors there that contribute to the situation that we're currently in, including the poor political choices at UK government level. So thank you very much for that very timely reminder. Councillor Batruni.
Thank you, Leader. I just want to add a bit more to what everyone else has said, with the latest statistics. In the report it says 10.1 inflation. Today's report says it's gone up to 11.1 now. So it's not like it's easing or getting better. And if you look into the details of that, food is at its highest prices rise for 45 years. That is the kind of scale of change and price hikes we're seeing. Food price inflation hit 16.2% in October and 14% in September. It's going to get harder, and it's getting harder, and there's no obvious sign of it abating in any short, reasonable time. And to build on what Councillor Clark said about the short tenure, it must be the most disastrous premiership in British history. Let's put that in context. The IFS said Liz Truss economic decisions cost the country and made a physical black hole of £30 billion. That tomorrow we're going to hear the consequences of trying to fill that hole, which will have negative consequences, not only for the Welsh Government, but that will come to us as well. So it's really important. It's not that just for a political kick. It's about really describing the reality of the situation, and that decisions in Westminster has literally caused a 30 billion black hole in our finances, which will pay and public services that we deliver will have to start bearing the cost of. So, I just want the people of Newport to realise, we are doing the best we can with the hand we have been dealt without much control over it. But we will deliver, and we will deliver the best services we can with the resources we have, and we will transform and we will adapt to their needs as and when we can over the coming months and years, and we'll always be on their side.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Councillor Petruni. Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Leader. Just actually leading on from Councillor Petruni there as well, quite aptly, I think that what we have to remember, and what you've said previous to this as well, is that we have to remember now not to turn on one another, and we have to stick together in all this. And remembering some of our front line staff that are going to be out there basically on the cold face trying to help our residents. It's not the fault of the officers in the council. It's not the fault of councillors. It's not the fault of your neighbours. It's not the fault of other people. What's happening now is the fault of the Tory government that's just happened, and we cannot turn on one another. We have to remember whose fault this is, and it's not your neighbours, it's not the officers, so please don't turn on one another. The best we can do now is stick together as communities. That also includes, the refugees that we've got, our Ukrainian visitors. They are not taking houses away from people. These things are not happening because of their own making. We have to remember what the causes are for all these things, and there's a plea really is to remember that everybody's going to be working really hard over the next few months to make sure that our residents are okay, and doing our best we can, and just to remember to stay strong really. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Lacey. And again, that's an important reminder to everybody, isn't it? That, what we really need to do is stand side by side now. As Councillor Petruni said, we are on the side of the citizens of Newport, and we will do all that we can to support our citizens, but to support each other and our communities, and particularly our officers, because, as you say, Councillor Lacey, they are out there on the front line delivering services, and whatever is happening here is absolutely not their fault. So thank you very much for that timely reminder again. So, colleagues, then, we've been asked to consider the contents of the report on the Council's activity and in terms of how the Council responds to the external factors on Newport's communities, businesses and Council services. We've had an opportunity to discuss the report at length. Are members happy to accept the report? Okay, thank you very much.
Happy with that.
And thank you all very much for your contributions. We'll move then to item number 5 on our agenda, which is the annual compliments, comments and complaints report. This can be found on pages 23 to 48 of the packs that you have before you today. And colleagues, as you'll be aware, this is an update on compliments, comments and complaints management in line with the policy that we adopted in 2021. The report provides an overview of how the Council manages compliments, comments and complaints and the Council's performance in 2021-22. It provides an overview broken down by service areas and complaint types and highlights key trends and themes drawn from the data. The report also reflects on lessons learned for the Council and actions to deliver improvements. Now, this report was presented to the Governance and Audit Committee on the 29th of September, where valuable feedback and comments were received. The report details compliments, comments and complaints separately, and we can see from the report that corporate compliments increased by 0.5% from 2020-21. Social services Adults' compliments increased by 66% from 2021. And social services children's compliments increased from a low base in 2021 to 13 in 21-22. Comments have increased, and officers are working hard to ensure that these are categorised correctly, as some of the comments that we get as part of the feedback may actually require a specific action. Corporate Stage 1 complaints have increased by 3.6%, but there was a 20% reduction in complaints that would be progressed to Stage 2. And I think we can be really proud of this, colleagues, because this demonstrates that more complaints are being resolved at that very first stage. So I think that's something to take as a positive there. Social services, Stage 1 complaints have increased by 36%, but there's been a 50% reduction there in Stage 2 complaints. And again, I think this is very positive indeed. Now, we do know that we need to undertake further work to gain insight from our customer feedback, especially in terms of complaints. And I think that the transition, actually, of this service area to people policy and transformation should help us with that, because obviously a lot of the policy team's work is with citizen engagement and addressing some of the feedback that we get from them. Now, it's important to note, colleagues, obviously, as we look at this report, that we work really closely with the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales to incorporate best practice, and we recognise that customer feedback is to be actively encouraged and acted upon. The Ombudsman's annual letter is also attached to the report, which is in the published pack. As a council, we're working to ensure that feedback is categorised appropriately to provide the most effective and efficient response. And this and other actions identified in the report are designed to improve future performance and will result in a different look to the headline figures. So at this stage, colleagues, I'm just going to pause with the presentation of the report and invite comments from colleagues. I'll move to the Cabinet member first. So Councillor Batruni, is there anything that you would like to add to this?
Just one thing, if I may, Leader. You captured the key points nicely, and if people want to know all the details, they can read the report. But I want to emphasise that we're going to be building on the information, both complaints and compliments we receive from residents, so we can effectively understand anything deeper underlying what residents are reporting to us, not just the individual issues, but see if there's any systemic trends or patterns, so we can better understand and better tailor our services going forward, so we can enhance our services to the residents, which is even more important given the financial context we are in and heading towards. So I just want to reassure you and the rest of the Cabinet and the residents that it's firmly on my agenda, and so we'll utilise that data, if you will, to best effect.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Councillor Batruni. And I really do have to say thank you so much for your commitment to the work in this area. Thank you. Deputy Leader.
Yeah, it's just a quick comment. Thank you, Leader. And it's in relation to, and I have to make this because it's in support of ex-Cabinet member Councillor Paul Cochrane, because this was a report that he constantly focused on in respect of the fact that the compliments weren't being captured, in that we are seeing a rise in compliments, but I absolutely believe those compliments have always been there, but what we're doing now is actually effectively capturing them in the report, and that's a really, really positive move forward, because the report quite rightly says that the report, the compliments and the complaints are being used as a constructive way to move forward and to learn. And equally, compliments are a learning curve for us as well. You can learn so much in relation to best practice and share that best practice. So it's really, really good to see those compliments now actually being captured in the report. And I think Councillor Cochrane would be absolutely delighted. Thank you, Leader.
Absolutely, Deputy Leader. I'm sure he would. So thank you for that. Councillor Hughes.
Just to add on to that, really, I noticed in the report that certainly in adult services how many compliments we were getting there as well. But I just wanted to say from the other side, having spoken to a lot of people on the ground there, that those compliments actually genuinely mean something to those individuals involved. In very challenging and testing times, I guess people are much more used, I guess, to having people who are coming to them very frustrated, very difficult times, and more likely to make complaints. But I think for those people actually working in any job in the council, really, I think those compliments really do mean a lot. And I echo again what my colleague says about Councillor Cochrane, which is, I know he'd be a very happy man today. But
thank you for that, Councillor Hughes. Would any Cabinet colleagues like to add any further comments on this particular item? Okay, in that case then, colleagues, we're being asked to consider the contents of the report regarding the process and performance of the Council's Corporate Compliments, Comments and Complaints annual report and make any recommendations for improvement to the annual report. Colleagues, are you happy to accept the report?
Happy to accept, Leader.
Mm-hmm. And within that, no recommendations for improvement? That's great. Thank you all very much for that. We'll move then to item 6 in the packs, which is the annual safeguarding report. And this can be found on pages 49 to 90 of the packs that we have before us. Now, this is the interim annual report for safeguarding, and it's the Head of Corporate Safeguarding's evaluation of our performance as a local authority in 2021-22. Now, this is an interim report because of changes in Welsh Government guidance, and a full report will be presented to Cabinet early next year in line with the new guidance. Safeguarding and protecting children and vulnerable adults is absolutely the highest priority for Newport City Council. The corporate safeguarding policy sets out the Council's duty and commitment to safeguard and promote the health, well-being and human rights of adults and children at risk. Now, this report assesses the Council's proactive actions and responses to safeguarding. The report was presented to Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee on the 30th of September, and there was a constructive and helpful discussion on the content of the report. So if we consider the report itself, the report does note the challenges across the Council in respect of safeguarding because of those pressures that have been brought about by COVID and the restrictions of the pandemic. The Safeguarding Hub for Children's Services saw a 13.9% increase in referrals during 2021-22. And this reflects the issues arising in our schools, our early years and youth settings, and for our partner agencies. For the children and their families, an effective and robust safeguarding approach is absolutely vital and can be life-changing. Despite the pressures of the outcome of the safeguarding self-assessment for all areas of the Council, it demonstrates a very high level of compliance with statutory requirements and a determination to continue to place the highest priority on safeguarding for all our citizens. Now, it's really pleasing to note, colleagues, that the new Welsh Government guidance for corporate safeguarding includes Newport's safeguarding self-assessment tool as a model of good practice. The guidance was published out of similar themes coming from external audit and encourages standardising some of the performance data to enable measuring distance travelled as to benchmark with other local authorities. The challenges of ensuring that all staff, volunteers and members are accessing and engaged with training for all areas of safeguarding are noted in this report. And this is an area which will continue to require a focus and a keen prioritisation over the forthcoming year. Now, the Council is working to ensure that safeguarding is maintained in all areas of service and will in the coming year work with a revised guidance for corporate safeguarding to ensure continued compliance. I'm just going to pause at that point for comments. Councillor Hughes?
As expected, Leader. obviously this is a required change to ensure compliance with legislation. And Newport really has a history of being innovative, I think, and focusing, certainly focusing on the well-being of its citizens. And that will, I think that will be supported by the sort of changes that we're implementing. Obviously, the most significant change from a safeguarding perspective, as mentioned in the report, is the definition of adults at risk, and the legal duty now to report where safeguarding issues are identified for either a child or an adult. I think throughout the report, I think the emphasis really is that it reminds us really that safeguarding is everybody's business. I think that's key really to the spirit of the changes, and that we are being proactive. And I think, you know, I'm having known Newport for many years, we've had a real strong history in social care of being proactive and innovative, and I think, you know, that will continue. What I would like to do as well is thank our safeguarding staff specifically. They've worked through incredibly challenging periods which are ongoing, and being able to, few people would realise, I guess, the difficulties of maintaining a strong safeguarding culture when we're going through such issues as COVID. And I think, you know, it's spectacular really what they've done, and I'm really thankful to the staff that have maintained that level of support. And I think, you know, I'd come back really just to sort of say that we know there have been difficulties, and those difficulties are really about the training agenda in difficult times. We will get on top of that. We'll make sure that, you know, those things will improve as people mix differently. But like I said, the key message is that it's everybody's business. Everybody needs to do the training, and we're really thankful. You know, it's really hard. It's quite emotional really to think, when you think about all the safeguarding issues that could happen if we didn't have really robust systems in place. And I support the changes really, in the sense that, you know, this will tighten things as well, and make sure that we stay there where we need to be.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Hughes. Deputy Leader?
I certainly support Councillor Hughes' comments, and I think what we have to remember that we are corporate parents. It's very much our role as elected representatives, and we take our, and I think we've already had safeguarding training as councillors in recent months, and it's important that we recognise that we take our responsibilities in relation to safeguarding very seriously. Safeguarding training, it's not just a responsibility for social services, it's also an inherent duty within our schools, and all schools have annual training. Governors have got a duty to ensure that they're trained in relation to safeguarding as well, and that's a statutory requirement. We all have a duty and responsibility to care for our children within Newport. It could be anybody's child that's at risk, and we need to recognise that. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much for that. Would anybody else like to comment on the annual safeguarding report? In that case, colleagues, are you happy to agree the report and the recommendations contained within it?
Happy with that, Leader.
That's great. Thank you all very much for that. We'll move on then to item number 7 on our agenda today, and this is the Corporate Plan Annual Report for 2021-22. This is in pages 91 to 164 of the packs. And I would like to say, before I go into my introduction here, how well presented this particular report was, and what a great read. So I really hope that all of the colleagues across the Council and the citizens of Newport will take the time to access this report and look at how well this information has been presented to. So the purpose of the report, obviously, our 5th and final annual report with regard to the Council's corporate plan for 2017 to 22. And the purpose of the report is to reflect and self-assess the achievements that this Council made in 2021-22, to consider where we can improve our performance and look forward to the new 5-year corporate plan that will also be presented here today. This is the first year which Newport City Council has had to self-assess its governance and performance arrangements under the Local Government and Wales Elections Wales Act. Now, as leader of the Council, I welcome the opportunity to present this report with the Chief Executive and her executive team to the Council's Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee in September. The report has also been presented to the Council's Governance and Audit Committee for the first time as required by the Local Government Act. Now, recommendations from both committees are included in the report and have also been considered as part of the draft annual report presented today. So if we turn then to consider the assessment, looking back at 2021-22, the COVID pandemic was still prevalent across our communities in Newport, and restrictions were still in place, which continued to disrupt many services. But as restrictions eased and we started to return back to normal routines, further pressures started to emerge as a result of inflation, the Ukraine conflict, and managing a backlog of work which was caused by the pandemic. Many of these pressures will continue to impact the delivery of our services over the next 5 years, and it will be important for us all to learn the lessons of the last couple of years, taking the opportunities to improve our services and preventing as best we can the impacts of those external pressures on our communities. Despite all of these challenges, officers from across the Council, our partners in Newport and community leaders have continued to go above and beyond for the people and the businesses of Newport. Looking back over the last financial year, many of our major city centre projects came to fruition, with the opening of the Indoor Market, Chartist Tower and Market Arcade. We also announced that our next major project to develop the Knowledge Quarter, creating a brand new leisure centre alongside a new campus for Coleg Gwent. Not only will these provide opportunities for local jobs, but they will help to continue the improvement of the city centre, changing the way that we use our spaces for retail, leisure and community involvement. The annual report recognises the work of our school community and our education services to ensure our future generations have the best opportunity to maximise their potential and support the ongoing growth of the city. We're also fully aware that our future generations need to live in a city that enhances and protects our environment, which is why we declared last year an ecological and climate change emergency, and we launched a climate change plan to become net carbon zero by 2030. Finally, this report also highlights the challenges that we face, which we'll need to consider over the next 5 years. As we've already heard today, the pressures that our social services staff are facing are not unique to Newport, and despite the very hard work of staff, carers and families, there will be very difficult and challenging times over the next 5 years to ensure that we have a sustainable service to safeguard our most vulnerable and disadvantaged residents. The report itself identifies 14 recommendations where we can strengthen our governance and performance arrangements. It will be important as Cabinet members to ensure that we support and promote the excellent work that our service areas are delivering and to challenge where we can to improve our performance. And I'm sure, colleagues, we all look forward to the feedback from our performance scrutiny committees on this as well, because they perform an absolutely essential role in this. Now, following the approval of this report, it will be published in Welsh and English on the Council's website, and as per the Local Government Act requirements, will be shared with our 3 regulatory bodies, Audit Wales, Care Inspectorate Wales and Estyn. So, before we consider our approval of the report, colleagues, I'd just like to stop there and take any comments that you might have. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Leader. I would like to celebrate the opening of Ysgol Cymraeg Nant Gwenthli And whilst it's still at the seedling stage, it's helping us to ensure that there is good provision and access ability to our primary school children to ensure they've got education that's been conducted in the medium of Welsh across the whole of the city. It's fantastic that we've now got provision within the Pil-Gwenthly area. Okay. Additionally, accessibility to IT equipment for use in Newport has been recognised as being amongst the best in Wales. It's been recognised universally. The way the ITEC grant has actually been used to ensure that it didn't just ensure that home learning was a feasible option for all our children during lockdown, but now that's equipment's being used within our schools to afford new opportunities that have a positive impact on learning outcomes. A specific example of that was recently in a school, and the children presented to me their pupil parliament, and they all presented me on their own laptops their beliefs and views of how a pupil parliament should function, the role of each minister, such as the Minister for Biodiversity, the Minister for Education. They defined themselves roles, and they showed me clips each of their own laptops in turn as to what that actually looked like. I would also like to celebrate the work that's now commenced on the expansion of the Baseleg School. It's a building that's been built with 21st century visioning, and there's a reassurance there that sustainability and reduction of our carbon footprint is at foremost priority as that building's been built to enable more children to learn within that school. It has to be noted that post-pandemic attendance in our schools, however, has been a massive challenge, and particularly in our most disadvantaged areas. We know that this is where learning opportunities are potentially life-changing, and it's vital that we actually get these children to school. So I really want to focus on our educational welfare officers and thank them for the work they're doing, because it's their engagement with our families that's actually making that difference, that one-to-one work that they're doing. They're going into individuals' homes. A lot of issue in relation to children non-attendance is still fear of COVID. Habits have changed, and it's breaking those habits and actually getting children back into school, and it's our EWOs that are achieving that. So that work that's actually documented within the report is definitely absolutely worth celebrating. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Deputy Leader, and I think that really does reflect our commitment to education across the whole of the city. So thank you very much for highlighting that. Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Leader. I fully concur with the Deputy Leader and her comments, and she's quite right to point out that the good things that have happened in our schools, and it's been ongoing. I'm forever saying thank you to the staff, because for me, without the staff we're nothing. They work incredibly hard. We've got Flying Stars, our family intervention. There's all sorts of things going on. We've given funding to the tune of £470,000 right across communities to help them, and all of this on the back of a 2-year pandemic, which none of us ever imagined that would happen in Newport or anywhere else for that matter. I think we've done, room for improvement, there always is, but I think we've done an amazing job given the circumstances we have faced, and given the austerity that's been pushed on us as well, leading up to the pandemic, and worse now further down the line. All in all, I think it's a brilliant corporate plan, and I am absolutely thrilled to bits with it, and very grateful to our officers. Thanks, Leader.
That's great. Thank you, Councillor Harvey, and I'm sure that our officers will be very appreciative of your feedback there. Any further comments? Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Leader. Just wanted to, so much of the emphasis, I think, through that period of COVID was quite rightly placed on NHS staff, but what I would want to do really as well today is just recognise, through the health and wellbeing our citizens' sort of objectives, that our social care staff across social services did immense work, And I just want to particularly sort of highlight one aspect of that, and that's the work that our domiciliary care staff did, and just really sort of really recognise the efforts they made through the pandemic in keeping our most vulnerable citizens safe, and that we really appreciate the work that they've done. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Hughes. Yes, and they really are the unsung heroes of the pandemic experience, aren't they? So it is important to give our thanks to them. Councillor Forsey?
Thank you, Leader. As you mentioned, it is our aim to be net carbon zero by 2030. And we've made a good start on this, but it's really vitally important that we continue the work that we've started, and this can be seen in the annual report going to Council next week. But as well as that, there's also the air quality monitoring and progress that's been made, and that is very pleasing to see because of the effect that it has on people's health. There have been improvements in air quality due to electric vehicles and other measures, both council electric vehicles and personal electric vehicles. So some of our air quality management areas now are the figures are underneath the threshold, and therefore they can be removed. So it's good that we've made progress on this, but it's dependent on everybody to play a part in that and think about how they live, to make a contribution to that as well. But we've made good progress, and I look forward to that continuing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Forsey, and you make a really important point there. Again, this is something that we can all play a part in, isn't it? So, and going forwards, it really is important that we do that. So thank you very much for your comments there. Are there any further comments from colleagues in relation to this particular item? Okay, well, we're being asked then to endorse the annual report in order to enable publication in accordance with the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act and Local Government Act. Are colleagues content to do so?
Happy with that, Leader.
Happy, yeah.
That's great. Thank you all very much. And again, thank you for your contributions to that discussion. So the next item on our agenda then, item number 8, is our corporate plan final report for 2022 to 2027. This is on pages 165 to 212 of your packs. Now, once again, before we start our discussions, I'd really like to say well done in terms of pulling all this information together, because there is an awful lot of information that underpins this and supports this report. So well done to the team for doing this. Now, colleagues, as you'll be aware, this item is actually asking us to agree the Council's next 5-year corporate plan and recommend it to full Council for adoption. As you'll be aware, Newport City Council is required, as part of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, to carry out sustainable development to improve Wales' economic, social, environmental and cultural well-being. We also have to fulfil our statutory and non-statutory roles to support citizens, businesses and stakeholders. This plan prioritises the Council's long-term strategic focus and meets the requirements of the Wellbeing Act. Now, the development of the plan, as you'll be aware and as colleagues in the room will be aware, has been undertaken between senior officers and the Council's Cabinet members through a series of workshops. The plan has also considered the short and long-term opportunities and risks to the Council, its residents, its economy and environment. In the development of the plan, we've also consulted with residents on our wellbeing objective themes, which were positively received by residents. And over the next 5 years, Newport Council's mission statement will be working to deliver an ambitious, fairer, greener Newport for everyone. To support this goal, there will be 4 wellbeing objectives supported by strategic priorities. Economy, education and skills, that Newport is a thriving and growing city that offers excellent education and aspires to provide opportunities for all. Environment and infrastructure. A city that seeks to protect and enhance our environment while reducing our carbon footprint and preparing for a sustainable and digital future. Quality social care and community services. Newport is a supportive city where communities and care are at the heart of what we do. And an inclusive, fair and sustainable council. Newport City Council is an inclusive organisation that places social value, fairness and sustainability at its core. Turning to consider then the delivery of the corporate plan. As outlined at the start of this Cabinet meeting, the next few years really will be very challenging to us as we balance the Council's medium-term financial plan whilst delivering against our strategic priorities. It will require the Council to take innovative and transformative decisions, and we must recognise that the achievement of these objectives cannot be delivered by Newport City Council alone, which is why we will ensure that key principles are followed throughout the delivery of the corporate plan. That it's fair and inclusive. We will work to create fairer opportunities, reduce inequalities in our communities, and encourage a sense of belonging. Empowering. We will work with and support communities, groups and partners to thrive. A listening council. The views of communities, service users and partners will shape the services we deliver and the places that you live in. Citizen focused. Everyone who works and represents Newport City Council will put the citizen first, focusing on our core organisational values. The corporate plan will also be underpinned by key programmes and projects that aim to improve the economy and communities of Newport and the delivery of council services. Each one of the council service areas will develop a service plan that will outline their own strategic priorities to support the delivery of Newport City Council's corporate plan and the continuous improvement of council services. In order to ensure the delivery of these plans, the service plans will be monitored throughout the 5 years and will be reported to the Council scrutiny committees, Cabinet and Council. And I'll just pause for any comments because this is our collaborative work, isn't it? And I'm sure that Cabinet colleagues would like to comment on this. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Leader. This is, I completely agree, it's an important body of work because it sets out essentially what we're doing for the next 5 years. It's our strategic direction. And I want to share your thanks to all the officers because they've all worked incredibly hard to make this happen. I believe, though, that it's entirely right that this corporate plan is being published with a focus on the need to work with our partners both in the public and private sector. A collaborative approach within our sort of local, regional and national basis is the only way that we can ensure that we can get support for our residents in going forward. We're facing a climate emergency, a cost of living crisis, a war in Ukraine and a national government who is burdening our residents with higher mortgage repayments, rising inflation and rising costs as rising interest rates. This is having an impact on all of us. And however, so our commitment has to remain firm to work with our residents and our partners despite the anticipated budget cuts. And we need to work to help to ensure that all opportunities are maximised to best support communities where possible. Thank you, Leader.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Deputy Leader. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on a few things about this corporate plan for 22-27. And, you know, we must be confident and positive in moving this forward. It is going to be difficult, and what I'm hoping that councillors from other political parties don't try and undermine this. They've got to look at the bigger picture and the situation we're in now, which the Deputy Leader has just touched on about the cost of living crisis. You could say the UK government have looked after the corporate companies more than the people. But what I'm trying to get across here is that it's key that we are determined, which we all are, to achieve these goals. And I think the residents of Newport will understand how important the principles are. I must stress, and I know you've said them, Leader, but fair and inclusive, empowering, a listening council, citizen focused. We need those principles in place, and I think that's down to the election in May and us having more seats than we went into. But we're positive about this, and you could argue that everything is against us with what's going on nationally. But that's what we're in place to make these tough decisions and move Newport forward as a city. So thank you for that, Leader.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Clark, and you make some really important points there, so thank you very much. Councillor Batruni.
Thank you, Leader. And just building on what Councillor Clark's just said, I wanted to emphasise the word ambitious in our title. Given the context we face and the world faces, this is an ambitious plan, and we should be proud of that. And there's nothing wrong with being ambitious, even in the tough times. And we need to emphasise that we are going to try and deliver things that, are going to be innovative, help the city, support its residents where we can. And I would, if you look at the details of the plan, there's words like aspire and thrive, but we are an aspiring, thriving city. The council will support all those endeavours. It can't be just led by the council, as you rightly pointed out, as community partners, but also by residents themselves, leading it forward, suggesting good ideas, working with the council where it's appropriate to help with services or to give pointers and advice, but also, to reassure residents out there, that as a council, we look at towards ourselves, we reevaluate how we operate, we reevaluate the best services, where we shouldn't support and support services that don't meet their expectations. So it's a challenge to our citizens. It's an ambitious project by ourselves to re-renovate ourselves. And I just want to emphasise those points. Thank you, Leah.
That's great, Councillor Batruni, and thank you so much for that. And of course, thank you and Cabinet colleagues for your contribution to the development of the plan as well. Any further comments in relation to this item? Before we move to the recommendation, there is one comment that I'd actually like to make. And around about 3 years ago, I stood in this chamber and I committed, when I became leader of this city council, that I would listen and that we would listen. And I am very, very proud to see before us a corporate plan that makes a commitment to Newport City Council being a listening council. So I have great pride in that. And I'd also like to thank the officers who've helped to make this something that we can really deliver going forwards. So thank you all for that. We'll move to the recommendation then. And colleagues, we're being asked to agree the corporate plan and recommend that it go to full council for adoption. Is everybody happy to do so?
Happy with that.
Happy with that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. The next item on our agenda today, item number 9, is a paper on the cost-sharing agreement with colleague Gwent. Now, colleagues, you'll be aware, of course, of our plans to develop a new modern and energy-efficient leisure and wellbeing centre next to the USW campus on Usk Way, and to, in turn, dispose of the existing Newport Centre site to colleague Gwent for their new city centre campus. And, of course, we've already touched on this today in our discussion of the previous corporate plan. So plans are progressing well and planning permission for both sites have been granted. The next step in this ambitious project is to start arranging for the demolition of Newport Centre and finalise the transfer of the site to Coleg Gwent. These transformational developments are absolutely critical to the delivery of our economic growth ambitions and our corporate plan commitments. As a reflection of our excellent working partnership with Coleg Gwent on this project and the commitment of both parties to deliver a Newport Knowledge Quarter in the city centre, Coleg Gwent have agreed to share the costs associated with the demolition of the building. Cabinet colleagues may recall that the demolition of Newport Centre is part of the Welsh Government conditions of funding the new Leisure and Wellbeing Centre. Whilst it was previously envisaged that the capital receipt for the land would have covered the cost of demolition, we're very much aware now that project costs have been subject to unprecedented inflation, and we are now expecting there to be an additional cost over and above the value of the site. It is possible that demolition costs alone could be approximately £1.2 million, but this will only be confirmed once the contract for demolition has been formally tendered. Now, the tendering exercise is expected to be completed by the end of December, and it's important that both the Council and Coleg Gwent have formal approval for the cost sharing before those contracts are let. We would also be agreeing to share project costs of around £213,000, which have been incurred to date as part of the process in terms of securing planning permission, undertaking technical surveys and those general project costs. The report is requesting that any costs over the agreed cost of the site are shared on a 50-50 basis between the Council and Coleg Gwent. However, because of the timescales involved, the Council will need to fund the entirety of the demolition costs up front. Coleg Gwent will seek to reimburse their share of the costs above the land value price once the demolition works are complete, with the £870,000 land receipt paid once the lease is granted. The Coleg Gwent board have already agreed in principle to the cost sharing, and this is expected to be ratified at their next board meeting. The report that we have before us also asks Cabinet to authorise officers to include all required land within the disposal agreement to Coleg Gwent, as may be considered necessary or expedient for the purposes of the development. Now, as already mentioned, the responsibility for demolishing the building rests with the Council. There is no obligation on Coleg Gwent to share costs over and above the valuation of the site, and as with all projects, there are associated risks. There is a possibility that tenders will come back at higher costs than estimated, and Coleg Gwent are yet to secure funding for their new campus development. However, both ourselves and Coleg Gwent remain committed to delivering the best facilities that we can for our residents, and we need to continue making positive steps to bring these projects to life. In light of this, colleagues, I therefore ask that Cabinet colleagues agree to the cost-sharing offer which is being presented to us and is outlined in the report. Are there any comments on that particular item? Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Leader. I would like to refer back to our corporate plan, which we have just agreed to take to full council. And one of our first well-being objectives is Newport is a thriving and growing city that offers excellent education and aspires to provide opportunities for all. Newport is a supportive city where communities and care is at the heart of what we do. This project is transformational. It provides those opportunities. It achieves those objectives that we clearly set, our priorities that we're clearly setting out in that document. I think we absolutely have to do this. This is also transformational for our city. It increases footprint, it increases opportunities. We've got access at the central hub of our city with a bus service that enable our students to actually get there. I don't think we have any choice but to move forward with this. And Coleg Gwent are absolutely in support of this project. I think it's a completely appropriate step to take. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much for that, Deputy Leader, and of course, Cabinet Member for Education. Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Leader. You started this with an ambitious plan, and that's exactly what it is, an ambitious plan. And we have got to take it, we've got to do it. We are listening, as you just quite rightly pointed out. And for me, the easiest analogy is you're not going to make an omelette without breaking a few eggs, and that's exactly what we've got to do with this. It's got to move forward. Holly Gwent need the space, and we need a state-of-the-art pool and leisure centre for the future generations. So I'm fully in support of this. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Harvey. We are indeed very much in need of this great facility, and thank you for your support for that. Any further comments from Cabinet colleagues? Is everybody content then, in that case, to agree the proposal in relation to this particular report?
Happy with that.
That's great. Thank you all very much for your contributions there. And that takes us one step closer to fantastic new facilities within the city centre. The next item then on our agenda today is item number 10, the work programme. This is for information. Are colleagues happy to agree the updated work programme?
Yep.
Okay. Well, colleagues, that brings us to the end of our formal meeting today. So I'd like to thank you all for your contributions. However, I'm not actually closing the meeting yet because there's somebody else I'd like to thank for their contributions as well. But however, these contributions go back many, many years. So as today is the last Cabinet meeting for our Head of Law and Standards, I'd just like to say a huge thank you on behalf of all elected members, but particularly our Cabinet, for your sage advice and your good-natured support, and actually your patience with us as well, Gareth. So thank you very much for your dedication and commitment to Newport City Council over many years.
Thank you for those kind words. For those who can hear me without a microphone.
Gareth, what are you going to do? You will never have to keep me out of trouble. It's someone else's problem.
Absolutely.
Deputy Leader.
Can I just share those thanks? Because genuinely, Gareth, over the years, I've been so grateful because I know that you've kept us safe. Whenever I've asked you for advice, you've come forward and you've watched our backs. And I'm genuinely grateful for that. And I know we're going to miss you, definitely. But good luck and enjoy your retirement. I'm sure you're not going to miss us. Thank you.
And on that really positive note, so thanks, Gareth. Thanks. And we draw the meeting to a close. So thank you, everyone, for your contributions today.